Mel Kiper and Todd McShay have laid out their top 10, and they've got a lot of quarterbacks in there. And I'm just curious what you think of one young man named Will Levis, because I hear over and over again that he's the prototype NFL quarterback. Anthony Richardson, I hear from Mina Kimes, who retweeted a video of him, that he is a guy that has ability that you just can't teach out of Kentucky and Florida, respectively. So my question is, where is Hendon Hooker in all of this? So if you can give me a rundown of what Kiper and McShay say, and I want to give you my thoughts with Hooker as a comparison, no relation.
So I am about to, as Skip Bayless says, unleash on Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. I'm going to do that. I'm ready to go nuclear on them because so Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are their top two quarterbacks. No issue there. Do you have any issue with that? I don't.
Yes. I think Bryce Young is a generational type of talent, except for his size. So to me, it's Bryce Young, and then there's a drop down. So I wouldn't even have Stroud on his level personally, but I see your point.
Yeah. I'm with you. I disagree with Stroud, but I have no issue with it if that's what that means. No issue with those top two. Then Will Levis and Anthony Richardson are in their top 10. That's ridiculous. I don't know who watched football last year and thought that Will Levis or Anthony Richardson was better than Hendon Hooker. Now, I get it. Will Levis didn't have a lot of support. I understand that. He had no offensive line. He had no protection. But I saw enough of him to say, you can be better than he was with limited protection in college. And I don't see any data that proves that either of those quarterbacks would be better than Hendon Hooker. And Anthony Richardson is just ridiculous to me. I'm sorry. Anthony Richardson is he's not going to work as a quarterback in the NFL, guys. I'm just going to say it.
Well, I think with Anthony Richardson, the thing that I hear that to me is so incredibly dated is that you got to give that guy a couple of years. Listen, those days are over with. Giving a guy a couple of years or even a year is just not how the NFL works anymore. So I don't see how Anthony Richardson fits into the current state of the NFL, because what you want to do is you want to take advantage of those rookie contracts. So you're saying that you're going to, out of 2 years, he's going to sit, and that eats up the rookie contract. So by the time he gets good, you have to pay him big time money. I like Hendon Hooker, even with the ACL injury, more than Richardson. I like Hendon Hooker more than Will Levis, even with the ACL injury. And I'm not playing homer here at all. I will tell you that I think that Stroud and Young are on another level. I think Bryce Young is on the top level. Then I go down to CJ Stroud, and then I would have Hendon Hooker actually as the third best quarterback. And you could talk about the upside of Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. But here's why I think Hendon Hooker, from people I've talked to, and I didn't think this just a few weeks ago, but before the Senior Bowl, I talked to people, and it's kind of like Hendon Hooker's that third top rounder. And since I've talked to people, look, he could slip into the first round. Hendon Hooker could slip into the first round for a couple of different reasons. One, I don't think the ACL tear, just in terms of ACL tears, was as bad as you can see at other places, is what I've been told. So he's going to rebound from that. He may be ready to play in the fall, I've been told. If that's the case, you don't rush him onto the field, but he's able to practice. The other thing that I've been told about Hendon Hooker is that he is going to get a boost when scouts really start to dig into his character. And that's no surprise to you, Caleb. That's zero surprise to anybody on our message board. But it's kind of like Josh Dobbs. If you've got to have a backup who maybe can't play, and I'm not saying Hooker's going to be a backup, but that's worst case scenario in my mind. If you've got to have that guy, why not have him be a good team guy? And I think Hendon Hooker is going to check all those boxes as well. So if you want Will Levis, if you want Anthony Richardson, go for it. But I would take Hendon Hooker over both those guys. And that's hashtag no homer. I'm not being a homer about that at all. You?
No, I'm with you. In a heartbeat, I would take Hendon Hooker over both of those guys. And I think you have a case for Hendon Hooker over CJ Stroud. And I think what's so egregious about this ranking is that these four quarterbacks are all in their top 10. Hendon Hooker wasn't in their first round. That's ridiculous. I don't get it. I will say that you and I, Dave, I think have an advantage where sometimes I feel like Mel Kiper and Todd McShay get SEC quarterbacks so wrong because they don't watch SEC football as religiously as we do. I will never forget how much they fell in love with Jamarcus Russell. And I felt like I was the only one saying Jamarcus Russell will not work in the NFL. I didn't even know he had the bad character issues. I just thought Jamarcus Russell wasn't that accurate of a quarterback. They fell in love with him because of that last-second drive he had against Tennessee. But, I mean, okay, that touchdown pass he threw to beat Tennessee, if you remember, was more about Ryan Carl being way out of position than it was him making an impressive throw. And I'm seeing the same with Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. We watched them play. Yes, Anthony Richardson played well against Tennessee. Tip my cap to him. He played great. That had everything to do with Tim Banks playing the softest coverage possible because he knew rightly that if you make Anthony Richardson run a lot of plays to move the ball down the field, he's bound to make a mistake. And he made a mistake. And I don't see how anybody could look at those two quarterbacks and think that they're better than Hendon Hooker. I just don't. And I think you have it. Again, I got no issue with Stroud over Hooker. I think Hooker's better, but I've got no issue with him. But I think outside of Bryce Young, I don't think any of those quarterbacks are clear cut over Hooker. And if you look at what Hooker did this year, again, I do think you should judge by on-field performance to a certain degree. And I don't know how you could sit there and say that those bottom two, Richardson and Levis, are better than Hooker. I tried to make a case for Levis earlier in the year. And then I watched him play against Tennessee. And Tennessee doesn't have a jaw-dropping defense by any stretch of the imagination. And Levis was horrible.
No, he was. And he was beat up. So I do want to throw that in there. He had shoulder and an ankle part And I'll say this about Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker is going to be looked at as a system quarterback. And that's part of that's true. He is going to have to be taught better footwork. But you talk about a guy that's going to put in the work. As soon as he's able to put weight on that knee, he's going to be able to go out there and master footwork. There's no question in my mind. You're talking about a guy who came in and basically in year one, 2021, not 2022, last year, he had mastered Josh Heupel's offense and had never seen it before showing up on campus. So he's a guy that's going to put in the work. I believe he's going to learn how to reset his feet. I believe he's going to have a solid NFL career. Right now, if I put the over-under at a Dobbs career, which is bouncing around, what's it been, 7 years?
Yeah, 7 years.
Bouncing around for 7 years and eventually starting towards the end of your career. If that's the over-under, that's the comparison. The over-under is Dobbs' career. Hooker will do better or worse than Dobbs currently has in the NFL. What say you, Caleb?
Better. Hooker's faster. He has a bigger arm. The intangibles are about the same. Dobbs, I mean, like, I don't like to use this thing, but I would say Dobbs may be a bit smarter, but Dobbs probably smarter than every quarterback in the NFL because he's a genius. But outside of that, like, I don't think Hooker's not smart. I think relative to quarterbacks in the NFL, Hooker's going to be one of the smarter kids in there. And so, and he's got a big arm, as good intangibles, and he's faster too. So I would go with Hooker. And that's the thing, half of the quarterback battle is you have to measure intangibles. And who could look at Hooker and think that he couldn't pick up a new offense pretty quickly? The guy, and also intangibles matter. I'm going to say it. Dave, I know I'm overusing this term because we talked about it in basketball this week, but I'm going to say it, clutch gene. We watched Hendon Hooker play this year. He's got the clutch gene. Every time Tennessee needed a play, he came through. There were 2 games this year, both against Pittsburgh and Alabama. Pittsburgh in overtime stands out to me. Hooker runs for a touchdown in overtime. It's called back because of a holding. And what does he do? He comes right back and throws a touchdown pass. That is a clutch gene. You can't underrate that. And then against Alabama, we saw what he did. 2 perfect throws over the middle to set up a game-winning field goal within 15 seconds. The guy's got the clutch gene, and I think that stands out to me more than anything else.